yield to the distinguished ranking member, Mr. Raskins, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you much. Mr. Horowitz, following up on that, when did the SBA start using the Do Not Pay program to check the eligibility of applicants for PPP loans?
Following recommendations by SBA, OIG, the PRAC, and GAO, they started in 2021.
In January 2021, at the beginning of the Biden administration.
They said they were. It actually, I'm not sure it exactly started then. I mean, one of the issues has been getting them to implement what they said, but they did make efforts to start, and they did subsequently start doing that.
Great. Well, when we passed the CARES Act in 2020, and we created the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee, which you lead, the CARES Act included specific language directing the PRAC to create a user-friendly website to give the American people an overview of how pandemic relief funds were being spent, all the way down to the project community level. But guidance released on April 10, 2020 by President Trump made it nearly impossible to effectively track pandemic relief funding past the first distribution. And Mr. Chairman, I want to ask unanimous consent to insert the administration's April 10, 2020 guidance into the record.
Without objection.
So, Mr. Horowitz, how did this guidance affect the PRAC's ability to identify and prevent pandemic relief fraud?
So in the CARES Act, Congress said that the PRAC needed to launch a website within 30 days. We did. Go to pandemicoversight.gov. You can see how the money has been spent. You can get to your local zip code if you'd like. We were challenged at the outset because OMB leadership decided to use what was already existing reporting tools in usaspending.gov, which we did not believe was sufficient. GAO did not believe was sufficient, and SBA and others, IGs, didn't believe was sufficient to meet the requirements of the CARES Act. The memorandum that went out that you mentioned put that in place, and it limited our ability at the outset to get the data we needed. For folks who followed our website from 2020 forward, you will see gradual additions to the website. Indeed, SBA wouldn't give us the information, this is an SBA agency issue, until September or October of 2020. We couldn't get much of any data from them because they were litigating FOIA lawsuits.
Gotcha. So do you think that that guidance met the language and the spirit of the CARES Act requirements for tracking pandemic relief spending all the way to the ground?
The public should know where money went. Congress needs to know where money went. You can't figure out whether a policy worked, whether it's been defrauded, who's accountable, if you don't know where the money went.
Mr. Darrow, following the 2008 financial crisis, President Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act to stimulate the economy and to get us out of the Great Recession. I think that was a $787 billion program, if memory serves. Do you think that that Trump administration 2020 guidance we're talking about effectively incorporated lessons that were learned from Obama's successful implementation of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act?
Not to the full extent that they should have been. The Recovery Act reporting required reporting from recipients, and the Recovery Act Board created that. So you had much more timely reporting than what you had under the guidance that Mr. Horowitz just talked about, which is using usaspending.gov. So, you know, they could have taken and some of those lessons, I think, so.
Gotcha. So, well, Mr. Horowitz, then, did you at all express your frustration with this undermining of the CARES Act determination that the public have complete accountability and transparency?
At the time we were meeting with, PRAC leadership was meeting with OMB and expressing the need to have better reporting portals than what existed with USA Spending. There are many issues with USA Spending. IGs have written about those that need to be fixed. GAO has written report after report about that. Those need to be fixed. If you want to find the best information that's out there, it's actually for the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which was the $150 billion in the CARES Act that went to the states. The reason that's there, that information there, is because the Treasury IG, working with the PRAC, created the recipient reporting portal. We couldn't do that. It cost us money. They cost them money. We couldn't do that for, you know, trillions of dollars. but that's what needs to be done.
Well, I'm proud that we included those provisions in the CARES Act precisely to ferret out fraud, to try to prevent the waste and abuse, but it obviously requires leadership at the presidential level, at the very top, a commitment to making sure that everything is accountable and transparent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.